Welcome, Clean Titans. Today, we're diving deep into the very foundations of a sustainable future. Literally, we have an extraordinary leader with us, someone who spent 2 decades championing sustainable innovation in the built environment. Please join me in welcoming Sara Gutterman, CEO of Green Builder Media. Sarah, it's a true honor to have you on the show. For our audience, Green Builder Media is the go to source for intelligent insights on sustainable living, galvanizing a new era of green building professionals and homeowners. Your work perfectly aligns with our mission to explore cutting edge solutions shaping a sustainable future. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you so much for having me here. It is a pleasure and an honor.
Sarah, your journey into sustainability is particularly fascinating. You started in venture capital, witnessing the rise of internet infrastructure and even the mainstreaming of organic foods before becoming CEO of Green Builder Media in 2005. What was the pivotal moment or core philosophy that drove you from traditional VC into the work of green building? Was it a clear or gradual realization?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for asking it. So, I grew up in Colorado playing in the mountains. And so I've always had a very deep love of nature. And some of my best childhood memories were hiking with my family and skiing and rock climbing and anything that had to do with the mountain. I'm in still today. I live at 9,000 feet in the Colorado Rockies. So I have it inherent within me to just be totally in love with nature. And so, therefore, it made sense for me to apply my career to sustainability and environmental protection. As you mentioned, after college, I started my own business, learned enough to get dangerous, and then went back to business school and then went into venture capital. And I was with a mid-sized fund. We had about 350 million under management. We were in Boulder, Colorado. We invested largely in internet infrastructure. So at that time, it was, for example, over IP, which led to the cloud, cloud-based storage, the first virtual private network that we sold to Cisco. Because we were in Boulder, in addition to internet infrastructure, we did a little bit of biotech, but then we also invested in organic foods and natural retail products. So, for example, we invested in Horizon Organic Dairy, which is now the largest organic dairy company in the world. We did Europe and sold it to Whole Foods. And I got to learn from people far smarter than me about how to create companies that were simultaneously sustainable and profitable. And I really loved that model. I really loved the fact that there was a set of blended values where profitability was as important as environmental and social responsibility. And these were great business people. They really that work and walk step with profitability. And so for me, it was a very natural progression after I left venture capital in 2002 timeframe, because that was a good time to leave venture capital given what was happening in the economy. And then met my co-founder of Green Builder Media, Ron Jones, who is really considered to be one of the original fathers of green building here in the US. And so we and building expertise, and I brought my experience building businesses together and founded Green Builder Media in 2005.
And it didn't hurt that RMI was so close to you, right?
Right. In fact, anyway, I have experience working with one of the founders of RMI. We've worked we have a very close relationship with RMI. We're just their work, and obviously Amy was the original founder, and now John Kreitz is the CEO. He's a wonderful human being, and their whole team is incredible, and they're working. There's a Chris Magwood who just is doing some wonderful work in the decarbonization of the built environment. He's become a very close colleague and good friend. So yes,
I heard Emery Levens at a Chautauqua event in 1995 or 6, and he was talking about, why do we make cars like this? Why don't we make them all hybrid? And Ever since that, I was following the development of hybrid cars, and I got one of the first Priuses that was in the country back in the year
Wow.
2000.
Wow.
And
So
I
you
drove
were
it
an
to
early
Colorado.
pioneer.
I
Wonderful.
drove it to Colorado all the way to the Rocky above the tree line and down
Wonderful.
to Denver.
Uh-huh. Fantastic.
Your passion for sustainability and experience with advanced technology helped you set a vision for the green building media. How did that VC lens specifically equip you to see the untapped potential in green building, perhaps even when others didn't?
Yeah, so there's kind of a response that I'd like to provide. First and foremost, when you're EC, it's a tightrope without a net. And I think that that's true for any entrepreneur and any startup company, especially when you're pioneering an industry. And I think in 2005, when we started Green Builder Media, we were very early on in the building market. And frankly, the building industry, specifically the housing sector, is a fairly conservative market. And so we had to come to understand, we had to develop an understanding about how to communicate with where they were, right? So at that time, we could really talk about energy efficiency, building science, and cost savings from energy efficiency and building science. And that was about it. Fortunately, fast forward to today, things have changed substantially, and we're able to talk about full scale decarbonization and resiliency and healthy home and solar plus storage and demand side energy management. Like, who knew management would become so sexy of a topic to discuss with our builder and consumer audience? But I think, when you're starting a business, especially one that's kind of through business in a conservative industry, you have to really figure out how to remain nimble. And our goal was always to enhance the sustainability of the built environment, right? We are a mission driven company, we're privately held, we're employee owned, and we get to make decisions based on that mission. So it's a little bit different than a VC company because actually we don't have institutional investors and we don't have the corresponding pressures, we'll say, of having those institutional investors based on their financial expectations. But that we understand that transformation sectors and industries is hard. And if we're going to do it, we have to do it in a way where, that the people that we are engaging with and speaking to can accept. It's been quite a journey over the last 20 years. Fortunately, language of the industry has evolved and we too have evolved. But I think it's good to have some of that VC perspective in terms of understanding, how to company, especially with the lens of the organic and natural product sector in terms of creating those companies that are simultaneously sustainable and profitable.
New media model you embraced for Green Builder Media was innovative. What did that look like in 2005, and how has it continued to evolve to keep pace with a rapidly changing digital landscape and audience needs?
Wow, another great question. So back into we were progressive because we had a really functional website and emails and ways for our readers. Fast forward to today, so much has changed. AI certainly did in many different ways to analyze our reader and audience behaviors so that we can optimize our own content and delivery mechanisms and engagement activities. We also use it to understand their preferences and behaviors. So again, that we can create, and then deliver the most relevant content. So not only are the channels changing, of course, through social media, but the ways to interact with and serve our network, whether those are our readers or clients or our sponsors or partners, has just so much. And what I will say is that things are always changing. And so our production team and our social team, they're always on their toes in terms of understanding that, like, SEO is now we have to develop content for, Gemini. And everything is changing within it. There was HubSpot, as a gauge, today, and then the change was so different when we first started the company. We magazine because that was the best way to engage people. People got their information. Now we do have that flagship publication, Green Builder Magazine. We have one magazine. We probably, not surprisingly, the bulk of our readership of it is digital, and we carbon offsets because printing a magazine is carbon intensive, and we use paper and environmentally friendly ink and kind of considerations. But change in terms of technology, things are changing on a if not certainly a basis. And so our team has to remain very nimble and understand what the channels are, what the engagement tools, and what the measurement tools are, that will help to continue to grow and enhance our business.
When you started, green building might have simply meant energy efficiency. Today, it is so much more. How has the definition of green building evolved over the last 2 decades under your leadership? What are the biggest shifts you've championed, and what are still often misunderstood?
Yeah. So, a little earlier, when we first started the company, literally, we could talk about energy efficiency, and cost saving building practices. But today, I think conversation to have is around the decarbonization of, well, the entire economy, but specifically the built environment. We know how to get there. It includes things. First is addressing performance. So, climate responsive design, green building, and building science best practices. Once you've addressed performance, then you can look at the meticulous specification of low carbon products from low carbon companies. But then the third step, because there really isn't enough green building and construction and transportation practices or low carbon products, that go into a typical American home, and there just aren't 40,000 products that are carbon enough to get to full scale decarbonization. And so the third leg under the stool involves carbon offsets, as to get us to net zero carbon in the built environment. So that's a really robust discussion. I engage very deeply with builders and developers and manufacturers and utilities and other stakeholders. The other kind of layers of sustainability conversation that are very active right now include one, resiliency. Resiliency really seems to be top of mind for people. So, in the country, we were dealing with too little water with drought and wildfires. And in the half of the country, we were dealing with too much water with hurricanes and superstorms and flooding. However, we got wildfires in New Jersey and New York in February. What? That we're seeing our consumers and homeowners or aspiring homeowners, whether those are building professionals, whether those are manufacturers, they're really waking up to the realities of resiliency. The other part of that, and I'm digressing a little bit from your original conversation, but we see that insurance is really top of mind, and that goes hand in hand with the resiliency conversation because what we're seeing is insurance companies are pulling out of a lot of markets because of these major catastrophes. They're so expensive and they just can't afford to help communities rebuild after whatever disaster you pick, wildfire, storm, stream. If the economy, including the building sector, is a house of cards that collapses. So those are some of the conversations that we are having right now today. I think that historically, in the 2008 recession, in some ways, that was the best thing that could have happened to energy efficiency because people became really cognizant of their energy bills. And then, of course, the pandemic pulled through conversation about just health and wellness to the forefront of our national dialogue, just because we were told for several years that our homes were the safest place that we could be. And so interest in healthy, proactive indoor air quality solutions, antimicrobial surfaces, touchless faucets, and those things really bubbled to the pandemic. So I think that different elements of sustainability waves based on, what's top of people, but then I don't think it goes backwards. Right. So people don't care any less about energy efficiency since that 2008 recession, don't care any less about healthy home. We're just continuing to hold through the area of emphasis.
Trillions of dollars of coastal property is going to become unbankable and uninsurable. And the consequences of that meltdown in property value is going to hit the economy far, far worse than that That'll look like child's
There's certainly potential to think that the choices that we make in the next handful of years will determine whether we will see that economic catastrophe along with the climate catastrophes, or if we can smart really quick and create some solutions. And that includes things like we see the state of New Jersey to back some of those coastal. Sorry, what was the big storm that they had? Was it hurricane? Whatever the big storm that they had, and it kind of worked, right? They were going to lands back to wetlands and its natural state because there was such high risk of coastal flooding. Again, they kind of did that. The state, some of the properties, their natural states, but then actually resold other properties for development. And unfortunately, the development that's going in right now is not necessarily more resilient than what got ruined in we some models. So, for example, there's a builder that's called Pearl Homes that's building on the west coast of Florida, and they're building the homes. When you see the photos of the homes that are still standing after major hurricanes, whether it's Helene or Ian, their homes are still standing. And when you talk with Marshall Gabaudy, the CEO and founder of Pearl Homes, he says, look, and I'm using his words, potato head, right? There are all these products and solutions that are out there. They exist, and we're just taking the right ones for our climate and our FEMA zone and our catastrophes that we face and plugging them into the potato head. So the nose looks like this and the ears looks like this and the hair looks like this for us based on our climate, what the climate issues that we're working. And so, I think that we builders, the municipality, the insurance company, and other stakeholders to think in that way, I think we're going to set ourselves up for success. And we might not see the calamity of, the insurance industry collapsing. But a lot of shift in thinking very quickly if we're going to kind of save ourselves from ourselves.
So you can build, but it's expensive. And I was talking to
Yeah.
a hydrologist a few months ago in Houston. He was talking about waterways and how they manage all the waters in the region. And I just asked him, by the way, what's going to happen here in 100 years? And what he said shocked me. He said, the entire city of Houston is going to be part of the Galveston Bay Area. He said, Houston is already below sea level. It's sinking, and oceans are rising a millimeter and accelerating. So without a retaining wall, it's going to cost to build retaining walls for a whole city.
Yeah. Well, one, you mentioned that a great example of a community that was responsiveness in mind. So instead of just plowing or raising the land and plopping homes onto a big swales and mangroves to do what they're supposed to do, which is to absorb rainwater. And in the hurricanes, they do that. It works the way it's to work and really protects the community. You said, a couple rounds, Babcock was the only community in that area that didn't flood. Because of the way that it was. So kudos to Sid Kitson group, Kitson. And the other thing I want to point out, based on what you just said, is we're seeing some really innovative solutions in Scandinavia and throughout Europe, but particularly in where they too are dealing with rising sea levels that can rise or fall, or big green areas that are flood waters and to up with floodwater overflow when they need. So there's some creative infrastructure that we can to find some innovative ways to protect some of our coastal communities. Maybe not all of them. Like I'm not sure Miami has a solution, frankly, nor Houston for that matter.
Both cities.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Green Building Media recently highlighted sustainable products beyond specific items. What emerging trends are you seeing in sustainable materials and construction techniques, perhaps modular building, advanced insulation, or even bio-based materials that are truly game changers?
Oh my goodness. So I literally could talk for the next 4 days on the advancements in products and materials. There's so many. First and foremost, we have to address steel because those are the two most highly intensive product categories within the building. Seeing a lot of innovative solutions. So, for example, with concrete, we're things like post-consumer recycled glass being incorporated in the cement mix to create a more structurally sound concrete that ends up being a better carbon sink in the long run because carbon absorbs, excuse me, concrete actually long term, but certain cement mixes absorb than others. And so there's some really innovation, the concrete and the cement. A lot of the stakeholders, including the Portland Cement Association, they are working on solutions in that category. We're seeing a lot more recycled being utilized. I mean, there's so much steel out there. So there's actually enough just existing steel, recycle it to meet a lot of our needs. And we're seeing a lot of innovations in the recycling part, but in the manufacturing of and the production of that steel, which is a highly intensive process traditionally. There's clean hydrogen that's being used in furnaces. And so there's all on that front. With respect to other types of, we are seeing some cool things that we're seeing are like phase change materials that water and ice they on ambient temperature to more effectively or cool or absorb or release heat temperature. We're seeing some being as a PV or a panel. It's starting to be in glass solar panels, but of buildings certainly into integrated shingles for roofing. A lot of innovation in solar in order to create on power
On the buildings.
Absolutely, yeah. And we're also seeing materials, graphite being used in different design and nature in applications that are appropriate. So, we're just seeing technologies on the side of things. I'm really excited about demand side energy that are leveraging AI and creating two-way type of ecosystem.
For our builders, from up to sustainable practices today, is it cost, lack of skilled labor, consumer demand, or something else entirely? How can we overcome that?
Yeah. And the truth is that it's a things. In reality, it's probably not as complex as the perception. One of the things I'm thinking about lately is that when we put the onus on builders to solve for affordability, which is a major issue in the housing market right now, what happens is that some of them, not all, but start extracting every dollar they can from the square footage that they built, which decreases the sustainability and the performance and the health and wellness of their homes that they're delivering. However, to me, that's just the wrong way to look at it because we really need to shift from looking at first cost versus full cost and look at long term operating costs, long term value, resale value in conjunction with shifting. So, Green Builder Media, our market intelligence and data services division, is called Cognition Smart Data. And we have recent data that shows that for the first time since we have been monitoring consumer data, which is about 20 years, all four generations that are influencing the housing market. So, right now, that's boomers, Xers, millennials, and Gen Zs. All four of those generations tell us that they're now looking more at long term value and operating costs than they are at lowest upfront cost. So that means that there is a changed valuation metric. And I really believe that builders need to make decisions and design and build accordingly. So instead of saying, okay, we're just going to build to lowest price per square foot, they need to say, okay, how can we incorporate energy efficiency, wellness, solar plus storage, all these things we've been talking about in order to increase the value of homes and decrease monthly bills such that the net is actually beneficial to home buyers. So to answer your question, I as much perception as anything else. It's just legacy thinking. With that said, there is that the labor pool there's a shortage, and the labor is even impacted further. So vision when we install kind of leading edge and advanced heating or water heaters, heat pump technologies. Sometimes contractors, no, I just don't do that. I don't need to do that. I don't need to install those. But we say to them, okay, we'll find somebody else. And it's a kind of next, usually you can find somebody to learn, even if they don't have the skills in their own future.
And from the consumer side, what's the most common barrier you hear to homeowners embracing green living? And how is Green Builder Media helping to bridge the gap? Is it
Yeah.
about debunking myths or highlighting long term value?
It's really about education and awareness. There's very few people long-term benefits of that is energy efficient, all electric, healthy, resilient. It's kind of undeniable, right? It's not really debatable, it's not really political. And so I think our role, Builder Media, the onus is on us, talked about in the beginning, communicate to people in a way that's not scary or that's not heated, but really then to say, look, this is what you should be asking your builder for. This is what you should be asking if you are remodeling or upgrading your home or buying a new or existing home, new to home. I think the problem is that a lot of home buyers historically have not really even known what to ask or what to expect. And so they make decisions based on aesthetics. Do you like the layout of I think younger generations are changing that model because they have access to so much information online as well as peer reviews, and they really trust their believe, and fortunately the builders talk with are really corroborating this. They're going in when they're buying homes more educated than consumers have ever been before, which makes it a little harder the builder sales teams, right, or the realtors or whoever is selling that home, because then those team members have to be educated on the questions that these younger generations are asking, which is about energy efficiency, electrification, decarbonization, resiliency, healthy home, long term value. And so we're seeing a lot of builders scrambling to educate themselves and their teams about these topics because they're getting asked the hard questions by home buyers.
They can just take out their phone and ask Gemini or ChatGPT for a quality answer, right? So,
Right? Or go onto their website and get the answer.
right, absolutely. Your work frequently explores the convergence of net zero, electric, healthy, connected, and resilient homes. These are powerful concepts. Could you break down what each of these truly mean for a homeowner or developer in practical terms? How do
Hmm.
they all weave together to create a holistically sustainable living environment?
Yeah. Okay. Another great question. So look at zero. And a lot of people think of energy in the net zero equation, but really net zero is expanded now to net zero carbon, right? A decarbonized built environment. And that involves embodied, which is all of the emissions that are released from the first that is extracted that's going to be used in a all the way through transportation, manufacturing, packaging, transportation, installation. So it's all the emissions that are released until the day a home is occupied. And then operational carbon is released once that home is occupied moving forward. And so it's really important now to shift the conversation from only looking at net zero energy, which, by the way, means the house effectively produces as much energy as it uses. So, in that equation, if it's a net zero home, first and foremost, performance is really, it has to be a very efficient home. And then generally, it utilizes solar, maybe geothermal or wind, particularly on a community scale, in order to produce energy, to zero energy. But then net zero carbon homes have to be very energy efficient in order to become net carbon. The other part of net zero equation is net zero water. And I think water is certainly to mind for those of us in the western half of the country. We're experiencing, we almost have to kibosh issuing new permits because of scarcity issues. We have seen places like Bainbridge Island off of Seattle that had to put a issuing building permit activity because of it's an island. It's surrounded by water. You think it's in, one of the rainiest places in the country, but I think that water is very critical. We're going to do a lot of municipal level thinking moving forward. With respect to healthy, that merges materials non-toxic and with proper ventilation and purification and filtration technologies, smart home systems. I think to control, audio and visual. I think interesting applications are energy management and then water detection and leak management. I think, and then proactive indoor air quality as well. So I think again, all these things can't. It's not every project, not every is going to be perfect and have all of the elements. But I think that if you are going to have a builder or if you are going to purchase a sustainable home, whether that's designing and constructing it from scratch or holes that need to be asked and need to be addressed properly. There are low hanging fruit, this, right? So adding an air quality sensor into your home so you can kind of monitor your air quality. Bucks. Leak detection and water monitoring system, that's $199. Putting solar panels and battery cells into your home, more expensive. Replacing, your roof with the metal like wildfire risk mitigation and enhance energy efficiency, that's going to be more expensive too. But I think that every builder, developer can make decisions on that spectrum in order to enhance the sustainability of the built environment.
I have visited this company just outside, I think, Glendale, Arizona, right outside of Phoenix, back in 2018. And they were making this solar hydrophilic panels that
Mm.
would make water out of thin air for you. And they would mineralize it, and I tasted some of the water and it was great. I don't know if it's cost prohibitive that they didn't take off, but I'll have to look into them again.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. Hydro panels are really exciting. And at this point, as far as I can tell, they haven't scaled quite to a point where they make sense for a single family home application. But certainly on a community scale, if there's not water infrastructure or, it would be very expensive. That's bringing municipal systems out to that community or creating a mini water power communities are doing now. They were originally applications Middle East in very dry climates. So they do, you don't need a humid climate. But I do think that they're very new development, but they're coming because I think solutions are they're on the right. We're going to see a lot more with respect to those types of innovations, particular category.
Let's talk about smart home technology. How is AI and automation being leveraged to optimize energy consumption, improve air quality, and enhance the overall well being within a green home? Are we seeing truly intuitive systems, or is there still a learning curve for mass adoption?
Yeah. So I think today a lot of the smart home systems are to do things like demand response and behavior in order to optimize thermostat settings or systems weather patterns. And that system sees that the temperature is really increased during the day, pre-cool a space when utility costs are lowest to set home or building and decrease stress on the grid. So I do there are that AI is being applied on kind of an individual kind of application. I think energy management systems and there's a lot of communication back and forth and the application to control energy, reduce grid stress, which again, just in turn is going for homeowners and building owners. So we'll see a lot of evolution and a lot of connectivity between systems so that they can talk with one another. It's a little bit disparate right now of those systems talking and learning from and optimizing one another. But I think that looks like we're heading.
Smart AI, smart devices are just exploding in homes. I was in the Bay Area just a month or so ago, and I visited somebody, and they have little, all kinds of sizes screens everywhere there, and that takes a lot of energy. Smart devices and AI takes a lot of energy too.
Yeah, well, you kind of hit the elephant with AI promise and the power to save a tremendous amount of resources and improve comfort and indoor air. The elephant in the room is energy demand by these massive data centers. Of course, we are seeing that a lot of the data to utilize renewable energy We're seeing some utilizing clean house, certain thing, kind of bullet question in terms of where our are headed in the future. We get our arms around the wicked challenges.
The concept of this becoming critical with increasing climate volatility. What essential design principles or technologies are builders integrating to ensure homes can withstand extreme weather, power outages, and resource disruptions? Does this create new opportunities for specialized businesses within the clean energy ecosystem?
Sure. So, yes, absolutely. There are brand new that as a culture is humanity seeing the increasing frequency and intensity of challenges. And so, certainly anything that can keep the power on, solar plus storage, generators, other distributed on site power systems. We're seeing a lot of interest in microgrids, community scale microgrids that can optimize the harvesting and the storage and then the power even before it hits the grid. I think that on top of resiliency discussion, we have to look at buildings to proper application of exterior materials, durable, lighting, insulation materials, windows and doors. I have to look at things like using tie downs and just properly. I think a lot of that's now being driven more and more by code and at a municipal and state scale and becoming less nice to have and required as waking up to not that these events are the associated costs and the heartbreak. So I think there's a whole how we design and construct homes, communities, and cities based on climate responsive as well, not just the products that are used, but the way that we design products. And there's much information on resilient building, been covering this topic for over a decade pretty thoroughly. So next 60 seconds to summarize it all. But interested in learning more, I encourage you to go to greenbuildermedia.com and just type in resilient building or resilient home in the search box. And there's ebooks, there's articles, there's webinars, there's just a wealth of information on there.
Looking ahead to the next 5 to 10 years, what's one groundbreaking innovation, be it in energy storage and material science or intelligent systems, that you believe will fundamentally reshape the net zero or resilient home landscape?
Well, I really do think that it is AI, actually. It's AI way that our systems interact with one another. So rather than having humans control those systems and kind of set it and forget it, another. So HVAC and heating and indoor air quality systems, other smart home systems, leak detection systems, weather monitoring systems, so that our houses turn into intuitive and proactive grids of all technology here. I don't know, there'll be many breakthrough technologies that I'm not even thinking about today that are going to change the profile of our homes and communities moving forward.
This has been an incredibly insightful and inspiring conversation for our audience, the Clean Titans who are eager to be part of the change. What's one concrete, actionable step, whether they're a homeowner, a builder, professional, or an aspiring entrepreneur in this space, that they can take today to contribute to this green building revolution?
So I get that question a lot. I think everyone has to choose that leverage their own skills and talents and interests. And so, what I would say, the one thing is to ask themselves, what are they in the position to? They in the position to ask the right questions and to lead and to influence their friends and their family and network. I can't say that everyone should buy a smart thermostat. I mean, I believe that's true, but I think it goes beyond that. Understanding how you can leverage your own power, your own influence, and then tapping into your own sense of integrity, leadership, and find the thing that really matters to you that's going to make a difference. And then just run with that thing and make it yours. And, say it loud. Say, that's really what I like to question because everybody's different. What motivates people is different. But I think as long as it's authentic and it's the thing that really motivates you, then you're onto something.
Where can our audience connect with you and learn more about the invaluable work Green Building Media is doing, including finding resources, reports, or upcoming events like the Sustainability Symposium?
Just go to greenbuildermedia.com and you can find out about all of our events. I really suggest that people subscribe to our weekly Vantage e-newsletter. So if you find the subscribe tab in the nav bar, you can just subscribe to Vantage. It's comes out every free. It's kind of our best of weekly e-newsletter with all of our stories.
We'll include all that in the description.
Super.
Thank you, Sarah, for sharing your profound expertise and visionary leadership with us. It's truly been a privilege to delve into the mind of a clean titan. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in. Remember to like this video, subscribe to Clean Titans for more exclusive interviews, and join us as we continue to explore cutting edge solutions shaping a sustainable future. See you next time.
Great. Thank you so much.